All video game soundtracks can be separated into two very obvious base categories, ones with lyrics and ones without. I know, it's very hard to believe. And the ones with lyrics separate into multiple categories, but the ones we'll be taking a look at today will be songs that try to give you a message and songs that try to tell you a story. Now, there are a lot of games that I could give as examples and analyze just in these two categories, like Snake Eater, Guilty Gear, COD Zombies, and many more. But I have ultimately managed to narrow it down to two very well-known games, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and Devil May Cry. My aim in this video will be to go over some of the soundtracks that have come out from these games and analyze them to see how they manage to give a message or tell a story. So I've picked 3 soundtracks to cover. I don't want to make you wait any further, so let's start with Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. I think that at its release, Metal Gear Rising's soundtrack didn't get the recognition it truly deserved. I know it was still popular because of the title, Metal Gear, but they weren't as popular as they are now with the memes. This just reinforces the game's plot that memes never die and an ideology that has been memed will be immortal. But anyways, I have 2 soundtracks to cover. The first one is shockingly from the DLCs, and it is The Hot Wind Blowing. The Hot Wind Blowing is easily my favorite song from Metal Gear Rising because it perfectly tells the players the reality of what soldiers really do, and also provides some insight on Kamsin. It shouldn't be of any surprise that the song mainly draws lines from what the US has done to Middle Eastern countries like Afghanistan and Iraq. The first lines of the song actually represent this idea quite well. Here, have a listen. The line, "The hot wind blowing," obviously refers to the Middle East because, well, the Middle East is an area comprised of deserts, at least the southern part of it. The next line, "Jagged lines across the sand," is about the destruction that these wars have caused. Jagged lines likely refers to the cities and villages that have been bombed and destroyed and are now nothing more than just some lines across the desert. This destruction is also reinforced by the next 2 lines, those being, "The crumbling buildings in our minds are all that stand." These 2 lines combine with jagged lines across the sand to create the image of destroyed buildings that remain in the minds of the soldiers when they go home. This could be referring to conditions like PTSD, but I don't know. Time for the next lines. I'm not going to say the next 4 lines because I'd have to say them all in a row. I will be talking about all of them. So they are on screen right now. These 4 lines are about the people supporting needless conflicts. They are being compared to a herd of buffalo that just mindlessly conforms and heads in one direction. This is a common theme in all of Metal Gear Rising soundtracks, and it is the main theme of collective consciousness, but we will get to that later. They also don't question the actions their country is taking because a powerful man said so. I have to unfortunately skip a little bit of the song here, because I have 2 more songs to talk about. So here, have a listen to the next few lines I will be talking about. Here, the lines, "Out of the ashes the eagle rises still," are of course ironic statements. Out of the destruction that they caused to lesser countries, the eagle, which is a metaphor for freedom, rises. Of course, it does not, but this is what the ignorant masses believe happens. The next few words, "Freedom is calling to all men who bend their will," is a hypocritical statement on purpose. Freedom calls to all men who lose their freedom is not a realistic statement. What it means here is that the people of these Middle Eastern countries can submit to their overlords, who will give them freedom. The last lines I will be taking a look at for this song are near the very end. These lines right here are why I absolutely love this song. It does not try to glorify war like other games' soundtracks, but it also provides character building for Kamsin, since he is one of the soldiers that the song is about, and most importantly, it actually portrays an accurate depiction of what soldiers really do. The justice the song speaks of is not true justice, it is a twisted and cruel sense of justice that countries give to their soldiers as motivation. The line, "In a forgotten place," once again parodies the people that live in these first world countries perpetuating these wars. They see places like the Middle East as forgotten when they were once the cradle of civilization. The last 2 lines I already talked about, so I won't talk about them again here. Just now, I've realized that this video will be really long, so let's move on to the next, which is the most straightforward song in the entire Metal Gear Rising album. The theme of Metal Gear Exodus, Collective Consciousness. Its name is all the song talks about really. The song is written like a letter from the rulers to the normal folk. Here, have a listen. This verse is essentially telling the ignorant masses, or the unenlightened masses, that they don't have the power to lead with words like judgment call. With the next two lines, give up free will forever, their voices won't be heard at all, the higher ups are telling the masses to blindly follow their command. Just like how the hot wind blowing compared to them to a herd of buffalo, and that the cries and protests from the less ignorant people won't do anything to stop the conflict. The next part of the first verse, tells the masses to obey them and to ignorantly follow their every command while not doing anything out of the line like questioning their motives or the goals of their country. I love the last two lines because they are comically straightforward, telling the people to let the country control them in every possible way. The last part of this first verse is, here is why I say the song is written like a letter to the people. We see words like I that represent the ruler instead of referring to them in third person. The first lines, live in ignorance and purchase your happiness, is a jab at consumerism, with the purchase your happiness part being about how people buy stuff they don't really need in order to get that sweet hit of dopamine. The next few words, when blood and sweat is the real cost, is saying that the real value isn't in the worthless stuff that people purchase, but instead in manpower. I know that it's a bit ironic because I'm saying this and I've been sitting on my chair for 7 hours straight editing this video, but, I guess. The last lines of this verse are on screen right now because they are all connected. Here, the writer or the government tells the ignorant masses who don't even know what is happening to not worry about anything, and that they will give them a sense of purpose or an ideology to blindly support. Moving on to the second verse, which is the last one for this song, this verse contains my favorite lines in any song in Metal Gear Rising. Here, have a listen. Those two lines are perfect. The fires of greed will burn the weak, so we will make freedom obsolete just carries the song like Sisyphus as if it wasn't already really good. This of course is about the greed of governments and corporations that actively harm the bystanders. So to stop the collective consciousness from raising their voice, they are making freedom unknown to them. I had no idea what the fabric of society meant. I mean, I had some idea, but I didn't know exactly what it was. So I looked it up and it is apparently the relationships and connections we make with one another, making us all part of a common thread of society as a whole. So here, along with the collective consciousness line, it is saying that they will repurpose the fabric of society, or the collective consciousness, to make it fit their ideals. Those two last songs were very message intense, so let's move to a song that provides us with a story. That leads us to Devil May Cry. Soundtracks before Devil May Cry 5 don't have that much of a story. Yes, I know songs like Devil's Never Cry tells us the pain of not being able to finish an entire pepperoni pizza, but there isn't that much to analyze. So I unfortunately picked one song from only Devil May Cry 5, and the reason I picked only one will soon become very clear. That song is everyone's favorite dessert, Buried Delight. Horrible Virgil impression incoming. If you want it, you'll have to make it. But you already knew that. Yes, Buried Delight is why I only picked one song. It is 9 minutes and 42 seconds long. Here, have a listen to the first verse. The temptation that is being talked about here is, of course, the demon blood in Virgil. Like I've said, while the Metal Gear Rising songs were a perfect example of how video game soundtracks could give you messages, Bury the Light is a perfect example of how soundtracks can tell you a story. As the demon blood takes over his mind, it gives him the sense that might controls everything. The next line, starting from Condemned, is about his state at the beginning of Devil May Cry 5, where he is dying because of his time as Nilo Angelo, where he fucking exploded. The lines Condemned and Falling Weak on My Knees is also about how he is condemned to die. But with the power of the Yamato, Virgil manages to separate his human self and his demon self, which is what the lines Summon the Strength of Mayhem refers to. Now we've come to the even better and popular part, the chorus. The storm that is approaching is of course a nod to Devil May Cry 3, where Arkham tells Virgil that a storm is approaching. But it is also about how Virgil is slowly enacting his plan of fusing V and Urizen, which when combined will make a storm. So the storm is of course Virgil. I have no clue what provoking black clouds in isolation means, so moving to the line, I am a reclaimer of my name. Virgil has lost his true identity in Devil May Cry 5, and has been separated into V and Urizen. He is the reclaimer of his name because close to the end of the game, he becomes whole again and reclaims the name Virgil. Born in Flames, I Have Been Blessed is probably about how his family home was burnt down when demons attacked his mother, but instead of viewing this as a curse, he views it as a blessing because even though it caused him much trauma, it is his primary motive, to get more power so this doesn't happen again. My family crest as a demon of death is pretty obvious. Sparta is a demon and he is Virgil's father, so yeah, that's that. Forsaken, I Am Awakened is yet another line about the fusion of V and Urizen. When they fuse and Virgil emerges, he is awakened and no longer forsaken to die. A Phoenix's Ashen Dark Divine is probably, because I'm not sure about this one, yet another reference to how V and Urizen merge. This event is being compared to a phoenix rising from the ashes. The decaying misery talked about in these lines on screen now is about how Virgil has fallen into a repeating cycle of misery, searching for power only to never find it and again and again. That was chorus 1. The next part is the second verse, however it doesn't really have any important story elements except one, which is this part of the song. The nightmare that is being talked about here is Griffin, Nightmare and Shadow. At the end of the fight with them in Mission 19, Griffin says,
"Us. This is our final fight. And the end of Virgil's nightmares. Godspeed, Dante."
who at the end refused to return to Virgil due to the amount of pain they were causing him. I'll have to skip a little because I already covered the first part of the chorus. The first part, Disappear into the Night, Lost Shadows Left Behind, is about how Virgil practically disappears at the end of each Devil May Cry game, exploding, falling into hell, or just walking. The shadows that are being spoken about here are probably the remnants of his past. The bridge of the song leading up to the third chorus is amazing, however it doesn't really have that much of a meaning besides the first part. So I'll play the first part. There aren't any specific lines to talk about here because all of them are about the same thing, Virgil's ambitions and past. He is a somewhat mysterious figure that lurks and plans before he attacks, since he is the more calculating and methodical of the two brothers. Virgil has killed many people and the devils who have stood in his way, as the line, "dancing through the graves of those who stand at my feet," points out, and his objective is to become a demon lord. He also doesn't view himself as some righteous being because of the words, "a derelict of darkness." This part of the song also talks about his time as Neil of Angelo, with the puppet master being his nightmares and Mantis. Finally, the line, "you want this power, come try and take it," is this.
If you want it, then you'll have to take it.
I have talked a lot about this song, but we have finally arrived at the ending, the third chorus, and it is beautiful. Casey Edwards himself has talked about this part on Twitter, so I will read what he has said about the Bury the Light part. Bury the Light is somewhat a reflection of Devil Trigger, just like Nero is a reflection of Virgil. Nero chose to embrace the darkness within and accept his demon side. Virgil has always tried to bury his humanity as it is a great source of personal pain and a memory of weakness. This part of the song could also be viewed as Virgil's humanity violently breaking out because the next lines are also about his humanity. The third chorus yet again talks about how the demons of Mantis attacked his home and killed his mother, which eventually made him become the sort of villain in the entire Devil May Cry series. I have no idea what "we're burning chaos in the wind" is, but "drifting in the ocean all alone" is about how Virgil perceives his life to be full of loneliness due to his trauma and how he views his brother. This video was a long one. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to me. If you enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate if you could subscribe. Thank you once again, and goodbye.